All right. Awesome. Welcome, guys. Welcome to this special MK gathering with a special guest, Amanda Cluis. It's great to have everybody here. Right now, we're just gonna start with a little bit of int introductions. And so I don't really like, I'm gonna pull a Dennis and say I don't really like to point fingers. If somebody would like to go ahead and introduce themselves, just name, where you grew up, and what you do is fine.
I'm going to go last, so somebody else has to go first.
Ladies first.
How about our group of ladies?
I was gonna say, how about the group on the corner?
The three of us.
Yes, please.
Which direction do we want to start in, ladies?
Okay, sure. I'll start. My name is Vivian, and I am right now in Tampa, Florida. I work for Campus Ministries, and I grew up in Colombia, South America, and been living here in the States for like 14 years, I think. And right now I will introduce the rest of the women here. This is our Thursday night meeting at the Root House. The Root House is a ministry of Compass Ministries directed to missionary kids. And I have here two of them.
Hi. You want to go next?
Sure. My name is Becky, and I grew up in Russia. I lived there for 20 years. And I have moved to the States, or I've been living in the States now since March of this year. And I'm currently looking for a job.
Awesome.
I'm Rebecca, and I have like 3 jobs. I live in the Ruth House, and I work under Vivian with the running of it. I have lived in the US since January 5th of 2019. I work as a nanny and a cleaning lady and do a bunch of random stuff for Compass Ministries. I co-lead our MK chat groups with Spencer and Dennis. And I'm also a college student, so yay. And I'm an MK from Haiti, and I lived there for 12 and a half years.
Awesome.
I'm Jack. I grew up in the Philippines. I currently live in Chicagoland. Moved here about 5 weeks ago from Ventura, California, but originally from the Northwest. And I'm an ESL teacher, not teaching right now. I'm working back in an agency I used to work in when I lived here in Chicago before, helping people apply for rental assistance so they don't lose their houses or get their utilities cut off.
And Jack, you mentioned that you're going to a TCK retreat. Are you on a staff or a participant?
I'm a participant. I sent it if any of you want to look at it while we're together. It's in our messenger chat. There's a link to it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Barnabas International, I guess, is putting it on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, this will be my first one, so I'm looking forward to it.
We attended, my husband and I attended one. It was not an MK retreat, it was like a seminar they did, and they are really good.
Are they?
But yeah, so you are going to enjoy it.
Good.
Sure.
Good. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes.
I'll go next. I'm Dennis Bailey. I live in Brazil. I guess I'm considered the director of the online community. It's a pleasure to be here. It's great being here. I always enjoy participating in these activities. I don't see any MK for a couple thousand miles, so this is as close as I can get to seeing other MKs. I do ministry, I guess, kind of volunteer work, trying to still figure out if I'm a missionary or not. Just joking. I consider myself more a person in ministry than a missionary. So I'm glad to be here, and it's awesome seeing y'all.
Hi, I'm Linda. And I thought I would be working too late to jump on, but I'm glad I made it. I'm also a nanny for about almost 22 years, and I'm about to retire from nannying pretty soon, and I hope to teach ESL online. So maybe I can talk to Jack.
Yeah.
I have a ESL minor, and I have some experience in teaching ESL, but not online. So
I'd be happy
I
to
don't-
share my experience.
yes, so let's try to connect after this. That would be awesome. And I grew up in Brazil. I was born in Brazil and lived about 17 years there total. I have 3 brothers and a sister actually who drowned in the city now that Dennis lives in, where Dennis lives. But that was back when it was just a tiny fishing village at the edge of the Amazon, and it was not a city yet.
Huh.
So we had our own generator for electricity, and it was truly out in the boonies. And so anyway, we lived mostly in 3 different states in Northeast Brazil. And I have since married a monocultural only child who was a PK, who ended up becoming a pastor after we married.
Hmm.
So I said I never wanted to be a pastor's wife, but I am. Good to
Glad
see
you can make
everybody.
it, Linda.
Good to see some faces I don't know, to meet you guys.
Likewise.
Yes, it's my turn. I'm Sarah. I am Spencer's sister.
Hmm.
I Brazil. Sorry. And I'm also an ESL teacher. I do online teaching too. And, and I married a monocultural, and I was just thinking now that my kids, even though they were not in missions or anything like that, but for me being a third cultural kid and my husband being a monocultural, they're third culture kids too, because so many cultures, and and then they become third culture kids not being in MKs. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I say anything? Yeah, I'm in Brazil still. So I have plans to go back to the US soon, but I'm not sure.
How long have you lived there?
We've been on furloughs, but not counting furloughs where we lived in the US for like 6 months, a year, or whatever. I lived here for like 23 years.
Wow.
I'd say more Brazilian than American, but I was born in the United States.
Okay.
My parents were linking to the mission when I was born. So yeah.
Great meeting everybody. I'm Sam Day. We have several Brazilians here, and my little plaque here, Brazil. So, but I was more in, I guess, Natal areas, Bahia most of the time, and then Campinas and Praia Grande. So moved around quite a bit, and then went there when I was 2 years old, came back to the United States on furloughs every 4 years, and then my senior year in high school back in the US. Then later on, my wife and I married here in the United States, went back to Brazil for 3 years, which is therapeutic for me. I was like, whoa, that's why I am the way I am. Helped me reconnect to the Brazilian culture and understand a little bit more about myself. And we also lived in where my daughter was born in Brazil while we were there, and then went up to Canada for a couple years, and then now in Alabama. So I think I counted up 46 moves in my life. I'd lose count,
Wow.
but a lot of different ones. We're in Alabama now, and have been doing either church planting, pastoring, missions. Now in the missions in the marketplace, in the area of leadership development. So fun stuff. And I may, in the middle of this, transfer to my cell phone on my hour commute back home. So I hope I can remain connected throughout the trip.
Yeah, that'll be great. Nice to meet you, Sam.
Thank you.
So I'll go next. My name is Spencer, as mentioned before. Sarah is my sister. I co-lead with Rebecca and Dennis, the MK Chats and MK Connect. I also work with Rebecca, Vivian and Amanda in Compass, and Rebecca as well. I officially work in the administrative office of Compass Ministries. And I was also an MK to Brazil. I lived there for about 18 years, and I've been living here in Florida for about 6 years now. So it's been awesome to have this online community going on. I enjoy it quite a bit. So that is me.
Quick question, since I was 5 minutes late. Rebecca, would you quickly mention who else is with you, please?
Yeah, this is Vivian LaCuesta. She's one of the staff members at Compass, and she's the director of the Ruth House, which is the MK group home living situation for women. And then this is Becky. She's an MK from Russia, and she just moved into the house this week, and she'll be with us for a year. Or longer.
All right, Nathan, are you there?
Hello, yes, I am.
All right. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Might as well. Sorry, I'm doing a little bit of work out of seat. So, I'm Nathan. I grew up in Kenya, East Africa. Lived there for 18 years of my life, and I'm currently living in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Nice view of Cincinnati behind you.
Yeah.
No, that would be Hawaii. So.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so for us to get started here, I would like to ask somebody to pray so we can get the meeting going. If somebody would like to volunteer.
I'll pray.
Thank you.
God, thank you for this time that we have to connect, make new friends, and who share similar experiences as we have with international background. And thank you that we're speaking to you, Jesus. You're third culture child too, a mixture of heaven and earth, and lived in Israel and Egypt. And I thank you that you understand our experiences in life, and that draws us closer to you and to each other. And be with us as we learn more about the richness of the potential of our international background, as well as our challenges. In your precious name we do pray. Amen.
Man.
All right,
Amen.
awesome. So I just want to quickly say here our values of the MK Gathering or the MK Connect. They are to be heard, to connect, and to belong. And within those values, we have a couple activities, and they are the MK Chat, which is a month of questions every day, Monday through Friday. And then on Saturdays, it's a day where you can ask questions related to the week's theme, or if you'd like to ask another question, that is fine as well. And then on Sundays, it's a day for rest. So we ask that you don't talk on that day and, enjoy family time or catch up on the chats and get some rest. from the week. And so this is one of our MK gatherings, and usually we'll have around 2 or 3 in each week. It depends. Dennis, Rebecca, and I each do 2 per month, and so it varies. But this is where we talk about we may talk about one of the themes during the month and go more in depth on it. And then the other thing is we also have a MK journaling, which is it's a month with a question every week. So it's 4 questions during the month period, and that is more for you to journal and like reflect on the question and on the Bible verse that is given on that day or that week. And you can, if you like, if you enjoy this meeting, you can invite MK or TCK friends to join by going to www.mkconnect.org. And that is where you also sign up for the journaling, the chats, and some other things that we have coming up. So I would like to introduce you, Amanda Cluis, our special guest tonight. The floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Spencer. It's a real privilege to be here with you guys, so thanks for inviting me. It's super cool to see and hear where all of you are from, and hopefully as the night goes on, we'll have a discussion and we can hear more of your input. So please don't hesitate to jump in, because this is not meant to be a lecture. It's meant to be, more of a discussion so that we can learn from one another. So I am probably the only person in this chat room that is not a TCK. And so you're probably wondering, like, what the heck are you doing as a speaker? But I did marry one, and I raised 4 TCKs. And we were missionaries as a family in Kyrgyzstan. So I went overseas starting, let's see, first went overseas to China when I was in college, and then spent a year in Africa. And then as a family, we were ministering to the Dungang Muslims of Kyrgyzstan. So in addition to that, I'm also a licensed mental health counselor. And so I'm in Tampa right now, and I have a private practice where I mostly counsel missionaries and their kids. And I love working with teenagers who have this mixed culture experience, walking with them through it. So that's a real privilege for me to be a part of their journeys. So that's on the one side of what I do. The other side of what I do is I'm a volunteer and on the board with Compass Ministries. So you heard from a couple of folks here who we're all working together. And what Compass is an organization that was started about 10 years ago by Cindy Duff. And she had a heart to reach out to a missionary homes community that was in St. Petersburg, Florida. So it was a whole community of houses, so missionaries would come for their furloughs, and she had a counseling background. So she said, I just want to provide free support and counseling to all these missionaries who are coming through and the kids. And she was trained as a play therapist. So she was providing play therapy and training parents and, just listening to people as they were passing through. And then after a couple of years, we kind of joined forces with some folks in Tampa. And now we've been able to offer free counseling to, many, many families and individuals who are serving around the world. And what I love about Compass is that it's a service that provides support and counseling to folks before they go to the mission field, while they're on the mission field, or even long after they've returned. So any like adult MKs who haven't been overseas in many, many years, Compass can still be a safe place for you. So we're always kind of coming up with new things. You've seen the ladies of the Ruth House. That's been an endeavor for the past year where we provide a support system for adult missionary kids who are coming back and transitioning back into US life and culture, providing support and mentoring for them. So that's a big component. We also offer these online groups that Dennis is heading and Spencer and Rebecca participate in. So there's a lot of ways that if you need support or want to share it with other people, Compass has a lot to offer. In addition to that, we do retreats. We do a retreat in February. We do summer camps in the summer, along with Interaction International. And we do debriefings and things like that. So if you're looking for any of that, check out Compass Ministries online, and we can get you hooked up with some support. But tonight, I wanted to have a discussion about the benefits and challenges of life overseas. It's a mixed bag. It's really a mixed bag. And, you know, even my own experience of going over as an adult was full of challenges and benefits. I was forever changed by my different living experience overseas, but I've also observed in my own children and the folks that I work with, just the ups and downs, the extreme benefits and challenges of living this unusual lifestyle. And part of why it's so important to gather together like this is because there's such value in knowing you're not alone. And the things that, you know, make you feel uncomfortable about being in, you know, maybe the American culture that like rub you the wrong way and you might feel like you're the only one. Well, it's really helpful to know that there are others out there like you. So that's where I'm really glad you made a priority to join in tonight. And so, and hopefully, you know, if you want to share your experiences, we'd love to hear it. But before we dive into the meat of that, I printed out a couple of funny anecdotes about, you know, you're a missionary kid when. So I'm sure you've heard some of these, and I'm going to give you a chance to add in your own. So, you know, let me know if you can identify with this. So you always have a crazy story to tell. Like you watch your dad kill a black mamba, or you've chased monkeys out of your yard, or you bounce down a bush road with no seatbelt. It's just your average day. Anybody identify with that? You get 0 pop culture references when you get back to the States. There's no, I don't get it at all. Yeah. That just passed you by. You cringe when somebody mispronounces the name of a foreign city. You are a master packer. How about that? A master packer. You've lived more in suitcases than probably in one steady home. And Sam, I think you had so many moves into the 40s. That's insane. Raise your hand if you yourself have moved more than 10, you know, let's say more than 5 times in your life. Okay. More than 10 times? More than 15 times? More than 20 times? I see Linda's hand is still up. Some of you, oh, Nathan's hand. Let's see, 25 times? Holy cow. 30 times? Okay. I know Sam's at 40. Linda, how many moves do you have?
I think it's about 38. I have it at the list written down somewhere.
Wow. Okay. Jack, how about you?
But that counts every time I moved in college and summers and everything.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Oh, Jack, you're muted.
It's the same for me that Linda said, and I'm over 50. I've lost count.
You've lost count. Okay. It's a lot. And how about you, Nathan? Your hand, I think, is raised.
I estimated about 100 because of traveling every 2 months. We'd move from one house to another. And so I count those. And so every 2 months we'd move back and forth. So, yep.
Wow. That's a lot. Okay. So, you know, you're a missionary kid when you move a lot of times.
And I do not count the times I've commuted out of state for work as a nanny with my nanny family, but but my home, my residence is still back with my husband, of course.
Okay. So it sounds like you're still on the move, Linda.
I am.
Okay. So, you know, that's one of the characteristics of this type of lifestyle is that you're used to moving a lot. And of course that comes with benefits and challenges that we'll dig into in a minute. But let's keep going. You know, you're a missionary kid when grocery stores kind of freak you out because there are too many options.
Oh, yeah.
Have you felt that? Yep. Let's see. You think eating insects is normal? Oh no, Linda doesn't like that one. How about this? You don't know where to say you're from. It's hard. Yeah, Sarah, you're kind of thinking about that. You've been in one country generally, well, between the States and Brazil.
Yeah, my thing is I'm from Brazil, but I wasn't born here. So when people ask where I'm from, I say I'm from Brazil. But when people ask where I was born, I say United States, and they're like, "Wow, that's nice." Because that happened mostly in Brazil. "Ah, where are you from?" I'm from Brazil. I lived in this and in these places, and yeah, I'm here from here. But where were you born? "Oh, I was born in the United States." "Oh, that's nice. Do you speak English?" "Yes, I do." So then they start asking words in English, and that's, yeah, that always happens.
That's how it goes. Mhm. How did the rest of you answer when somebody asks where you're from?
Well, I'm living in Tampa now.
So has your answer
That's how I
changed?
answer, then I let them, if they want to ask me more questions, they do, so then that's how it unfolds.
Mhm.
I say I was born in the US, grew up in the Philippines, and my flag is that of the United Nations.
I like that. I like that.
It all depends on the situation and the person and how much time I have, and if I think they care.
Mm.
That's a great point, Linda. I think I like to know that somebody really wants to know before I dive into like the whole history. If they don't care, then just a little short answer. Yeah.
Because I have an accent, it's kind of hard to hide that I'm not American. So I usually say I'm from Brazil. And if they want to know more, then they'll ask. But usually that's what I say. I'm from Brazil.
So does anybody else have any funny clips of, you're a missionary kid when?
When people ring the doorbell instead of clap at them to let you know they're at your house.
Okay. Mhm.
You know you're a TCK when the way you get a taxi to stop is not like the US.
How do you do it, Jack?
In the Philippines, it's psst. It's just that sound.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or how you get the attention of the waiter or waitress,
Yeah.
either dinging the glasses or raising your hand. My dad would get in so much trouble every time he came to the US.
You know you're an MK TCK when you really, really appreciate hot running water.
Mm.
Yeah.
And you think you might get a shock in the electric shower. You always wear your flip-flops in the shower so you don't get a shock.
You know you're a TCK when you enter a room with people that look like you, but you're drawn to people who don't look like you or have an accent.
Good.
It's a good one.
You know you're a TCK when Starbucks is a scary place.
When the city is a jungle.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What are some Russian MK, you were an MK isms?
I've been trying to think, but because I had a whole book on, that, but somehow I can't think of any.
I would say we were in a Russian culture in Kyrgyzstan, so I would maybe say like if you say no 3 times automatically. That was kind of something of the Russian culture then.
I want to say it's like, you're an MK when you know more than like 20 flags.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Even that's generous, Spencer. A lot of people in the US don't know even 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One really big one for me, whenever I first came back to the States, and even now, well, not so much now, but I never sleep with the window open, ever, ever, ever. You know you're a TCK when you are afraid because there are no bars on the windows.
Mm.
I've
You
gotten
know-
used to it, but I do not have the windows open when I'm out of the house or at night.
You know you're a TCK when you like the smell of jet fuel.
That's funny. That's great. Well, good. Thank you for your input. So let's transition into, we've got the mindset of like kind of digging into our experiences. Let's talk some about the challenges and the benefits of living part of your life overseas, and particularly some of the formative years when you grow up overseas. It forms your character, your identity. So why don't let's start with the challenges, and then we'll end the night with the benefits so that nobody goes home, leaves the meeting discouraged. So I'd like to hear from you guys what you think some of the challenges are, and then I'll fill in the holes if we don't cover them. So what are some of the hard things about growing up overseas?
I'd say the hardest thing for me is that I identify on the inside as not being a white person. And even when I try to explain that to a white person, they still don't get it. But when I tell people who are people of color that, they get it right away. So
And they accept the fact that you think that way. I mean, the fact that they won't say, well, you are white, so there. They don't do that.
no,
People who aren't white.
no.
Wow. And I'm sorry, where are you located right now, Jack?
The Chicago area?
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Okay.
No problem.
There's major melting pot there.
Yeah.
One of the, of course, very common MK challenges would be always having to meet new people or being the new person and always saying goodbye to your friends
Mm.
when you come and go.
I think since my experience is living in between two countries, it's kind of hard to have an identity, because I don't look Brazilian, but I also don't look American in a way. So it's kind of hard to, have that sense of identity. Am I Brazilian? Am I American?
Let's pause there on that question of identity, because both you and Spencer and Jack brought it up, that sense of who am I if I'm in America, and I might even look American, but I'm not American on the inside. Or like you, Spencer, you look a little bit American, but a little bit not, and people don't know what to do with you. That sense of like, who am I, can be really challenging. And Sam, you said something early on that when you finally went back to Brazil, and correct me if I'm getting it wrong, you finally went back to Brazil and it was really like healing for you because it helped you understand who you were. Can you expand on that?
That's good. Let me put my video back on. Yeah, it was helpful to, I guess, understand interactions, why you make decisions the way you do, how you handle conflict the way you do, how you communicate, how you approach people. So it was, because you're kind of like Jack mentioned, you look like everybody around you, but I guess you have some quirks that some people don't quite get. So it helped me understand why I behave and react and respond in certain ways.
Mm-hmm. And that's really helpful, like as you're developing your identity, to understand that you're not just some alien. It makes sense in the context of the different cultures that you've lived in, and that's why we call it being a third culture person. You're born in one place, a host, and then you move to another place, and you are a unique mix of that. And when you travel and maybe revisit a place, it starts to put those pieces together. Oh, that's why I do that weird thing, or that's why I respond in a certain way that's really different than all the Americans around me.
Mm-hmm.
And so starting to make sense of who you are is really important for your self-esteem and even discovering who you are in the Lord, to know that like you are that way because of your experiences. And it's beautiful and it's hard at the same time, because one of the greatest longings of children and teenagers is to fit in. And so especially in those teen years, it can be so devastating when you really don't fit in anywhere. As adults, we hopefully mature into our identity and become comfortable with the paradox of who we are and the different cultures. But for kids and teenagers, it can be particularly difficult, which is one reason why these types of gatherings and retreats of getting TCKs together and MKs is so important, to realize you're not alone in that, and you do make sense, and there can be a place for you. So it's not surprising that like a lot of times, if you're a white American, for example, you might feel more comfortable with different ethnic groups in the States, or people who are or have traveled a lot. I know that my own kids are definitely drawn to kids who are not American, and actually my husband and I as well. Our closest friends for years in the States were Muslim. We're like, we just really get along with them better than the Christians around us, which didn't really make sense at the moment, but they're very hospitable and they got us. They understood us because that's where we had come from. So it was confusing in that case, but also once we took a step back, we could understand that's what we were familiar with. That's what we'd done overseas. So identity is a huge challenge of living overseas. And just coming to a point of accepting yourself, who you are, your quirks, what's unique about you. You are not going to be like the person next to you at all in many ways, but are you okay with that? Is really, the big question. So identity is one of the challenges of living overseas. Let's keep going. Oh, well, we can go with the one that Linda said. Let's go with the one Linda said about having to say goodbye all the time and being the new person, always coming in. And, Nathan, you moved 100 times. Like, that must be a big part of your story. So what are your thoughts on that aspect of always having to say goodbye or be the new person?
One, I guess it ties in with the identity as well. I feel like because we've learned how to adapt to different locations, different cultures, different people, I feel like it's easy to connect. I can connect almost anywhere, but I don't feel like I belong anywhere. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can go within any group, and like a chameleon, I've learned to adapt and connect real easily. But at the same time, I don't feel like I belong to any of these groups. But third culture people, I guess that's where I'm discovering a belonging of mutual understanding. Challenge for me was, I remember leaving Brazil. I was back 11th grade, coming back to my 12th grade year, and I knew I wouldn't be going back. So, the church plant, we're real close with a youth group, and almost, it was so painful that it's almost like an internal vow. I'll never connect relationally to the point that when I leave, it will hurt this bad again. And so I've learned to serve, connect around a lot of people. So a lot of people see me as very friendly, very relational. That's the external side of things. I'll serve you, I love you, but I'm never going to let somebody get so close to me, because in my psyche, I'm always feeling I'm going to be moving. And so I don't want to hurt again this bad, where I rely on somebody else relationally for joy or happiness. So I've learned to be independent in that way. So that's something I've had to start unraveling, and even work with counselors to, hey, let me explore that part of me, to undo that vow I made, because we can only go to a certain level on our own. If we want to reach our full potential, we have to do it relationally with others. So it's I'm not there yet, but it's taken a while to break down these thick walls on the heart to be able to let others in.
I think it's interesting. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I think it's interesting what Sam was saying. That there's a certain disconnect at times, like, so we don't feel that pain. So at certain times we can create that disconnectedness. I heard my brother say one time that TCKs and MKs can be dangerous in the sense that they don't sometimes feel certain feelings because they create that protection and they don't want to be hurt, or they can be disconnected in the certain situations. I don't know. Just throwing some out.
Mhm. I think that's really true, Dennis. And Sam, thank you so much for sharing your experience, because it's very common for people who have grown up overseas to be like a chameleon. You said, you know, have the ability to adapt and transform and blend in on a certain level, because you're attuned to cultural cues and how close are people standing, and how are they, you know, honoring the older people in this community, and what you need, where you sit, all those things. The benefit is you learn, if you've traveled to different countries, you pick up those things and you can tend to blend in on the surface. However, there can be a protective mechanism that comes in that protects your heart, because you have moved so many times. Everybody in this group has moved so many times, and that's painful. It's painful to rip apart from the friends you've made, and it's scary to have to enter back in as the new kid. That's really, really hard. And so a lot of TCKs are known for jumping in quickly and easily to relationships, but being careful. Like, they can go deep really fast because they know their time might not be short, but others respond with, I'm only going to go this far. I'm not going to let you get close because I know I'm leaving soon. And, you know, with what Sam was getting at, that is, it protects you and it serves a purpose. However, it can harm you in the long run, because then you're not free to open yourself up to true relationships and, you know, true friendships and marriage, for example. You have to be able to be willing to go to that deep level and trust that these people either aren't going to leave you, or even if they do have to move, that you'll be able to maintain your relationship. But so you're really touching on, you know, one of the really important challenges is relationships. Not only is it hard to find people that you connect with, but then when you do, you're so scared that you're going to be moving before long. And also some people who want to avoid that pain, they'll even sabotage the relationship before you have to move. Sometimes you're like, I'm out. And it can get ugly if that's your pattern. So being aware of those things and learning healthier, you know, styles and methods of leaving there are things that you can do to overcome those patterns that you might have developed as a kid that were really meant to protect your heart. You know, as an adult, you can learn healthier ways of engaging and then disengaging if you are moving and you know, starting new relationships in a new place. But that is definitely one of the biggest hardships. And you also brought to mind, there's a great book, but this is a saying worth remembering, that we belong everywhere and nowhere at the same time. It seems like a complete paradox, and it is, but you can belong everywhere and fit in to a certain extent, and you feel like you belong nowhere because there's nowhere that is the perfect fit for you and where you can totally relax and be yourself, except maybe in a community like this. You know, and again, that's the importance of it. Any other challenges that come to mind for you?
Yeah, I know one of the biggest challenges for me is that I was still in the midst of an addiction when I decided to get married to somebody. And after I got married, I got sober, and the TCK came back, because addictions just smother our identities. They're submerged because all we can think about is the addiction. And I had no idea how monocultural a woman I had married. And we've had just a really, really tough marriage for 17 years. And this has been one of the biggest reasons, is because it's not just, it's as a TCK for me, my whole way of looking at life has been shaped by people who are global, people who live in other countries, people who are minorities in our country. And most mainstream white people in the US have a totally different way. So she grew up in that culture. I grew up in mine, and it's just really, really been a difficult clash. In fact, right now we are in the process of separating. We're not sure what's going to happen, but it's been very, very painful for both of us, but I certainly know for me.
Hmm. Jack, I'm so sorry that you all are going through that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it is certainly challenging to be in relationship with anyone, but also somebody who's monocultural when you have grown up in a third culture. The challenges are significant, and part of the equation is you understanding who you are, given your upbringing, and then us trying to be patient with monocultures when they just don't get us, and our ways can be really foreign to them. So it's definitely can be a hard trial, whether it's in marriage or in friendship. But the more we can discuss in venues like this, the better we can understand one another and support each other, then that can move us in the right direction. My kids have had moments where they were so angry that we brought them up overseas because it made them so strange and unusual to their classmates, and but then they swung to the other side, and there were moments where they were like grateful and they could see the plus sides, but wow, there was such a swinging, and certain moments where they hated America, and then certain moments where all they wanted to do was fit in and just be American. Let's forget we were even overseas. And so it's been interesting as a parent to watch that swinging, and even to know it in myself. When we first came back from the mission field, my husband could not take any phone calls from our friends from Kyrgyzstan and I was like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, it's just too painful. He didn't have the capacity. It was too hard on his heart. But then later he swung to the other side where he was able to reinstate those relationships and, come to a healthier place. So it's also, don't be surprised if you kind of swing from one side or the other. The healthiest place is really to be in the middle, though, where you're embracing both your overseas identity and your current location and identity, and finding a peaceful pact of those two. That's the healthiest place to be, and to find people to support you who understand you in that middle place. Gosh, we're running out of time. This has been great discussion. I don't want to leave you on a low note. I want to spend our last couple minutes talking about some of the amazing benefits. And because we're short on time, we're ending in 5 minutes, right, Spencer?
We can go until like 8:30.
Oh, we can. Okay. If we have extra time, then I can toss it out to you guys. What are some of the benefits that you guys have observed about growing up overseas?
I think what Sam said about being like a chameleon, and what I think Amanda said as well, of picking up on small cues and how the culture goes, that like is very helpful in a work environment and situations like that, like at parties, Christmas holiday party or whatever. Or like getting to meet new people, like you see the environment at the place, like for example at church, you kind of like are able to adapt really quickly to the different churches that you go to.
Absolutely, Spencer. Adaptability is a huge one. When you have the chance to experience life in this setting and moving, you're attuned to cultural cues and social cues, but you're also able to adapt. There's a lot of people in this culture in America that are not adaptable. And, it can come across as a weakness, but you all, because of your experiences, have that natural adaptability because you've had to survive in different settings. And so you've got that survival skill, which can be a real asset, like Spencer said, in the workplace, in social settings, in church settings. We are naturally aware that there's really not just one way to do things. There's not one right way. There's a lot of great ways to do certain things, and that can lead to flexible thinking as well. So good, adaptability. What are some other benefits?
I always think that, we're made in the image of God, and I think, so we see the beauty of God in different cultures. And I think God is so big, so beautiful, so amazing that there's not one culture that can capture all of his glory and all of his beauty. So it's like a kaleidoscope, looking through a kaleidoscope. And so when we have had an opportunity to be in different countries, different cultures, we're able to see more of the glory of God, the beauty of God. And so that was something, I know MKs, we tend to, like on a pendulum, some love the United States and always comparing the other country to the US. Others love the other country and always dogging the US, materialistic or whatnot. And then other MKs have been able to, with one hand, grasp the beauty of their one culture and the benefits of our country too. So I think we're able to incorporate the best of different cultures into our being and into our identity. And so I found that it enriches my soul, seeing the beauty.
Yeah, I think it gives us compassion and awareness for other people who also are TCKs or internationals, TCAs or MKs. So it gives us some insight to maybe walking alongside them in whatever they may be going through. Their pains, the newness of where they are, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Along those lines, Linda, like just having cultural awareness and empathy is huge. That, a lot of monoculturals struggle with understanding and having empathy for people of other cultures. And, we have a lot of racism problems here in the States, a ton. But hopefully our experiences of living with other cultures and most likely being a minority, that gives us a specific empathy that is really important in our day and age, that, it's harder to have if you haven't experienced other cultures and even loved them. I imagine that you all loved many aspects and people of the cultures you grew up in, like they were dear to your heart. And that can be hard to understand how that happens if you haven't experienced it. Yeah, so that cultural empathy, good. How about you ladies at the Ruth House? Any benefits of living overseas? I'm gonna call you out.
I would say like speaking multiple languages. Yeah, bilingual, trilingual.
And what do you call a person who only speaks one language? An American. Oh. Did I say that?
I said boring. I don't know what she's.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes, but yes, learning other languages, being able to speak in other languages, and Sam was talking about the glory and the kaleidoscope of seeing God. It's also true of like language. You can express things in other languages that are just kind of lost in English. It can be confusing for other people when you're like, you can't think of the word and that's similar in English, but it can pop out in another language.
Yeah, I would say that also helps, or there is a tendency to build resilience when you live in another culture. Bouncing
And
back
there's really
because of the hardships, bouncing
so
back.
obviously in knowing multiple languages.
Amanda, you're breaking up.
Come back.
If everyone else mutes, it might.
Oh no. Amanda, are you there?
Here, can you hear me?
Yeah, we're back.
No, you can't.
No, it broke again. Oh no.
Everybody else turn off.
Are we back?
Mike's.
Okay, I'm gonna switch. Spencer,
Yes.
okay.
I see her.
Okay. Let me leave. Sorry.
No
You're
problem.
there.
All right. Can you guys see me now?
Can
Nope.
hear you.
We can
You can hear me. I'm sorry. Okay, let's try this. Okay,
There we go.
how about
Okay,
now?
good.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Even though I'm in America, the internet still stinks sometimes. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about some of the benefits. Vivian, you were just talking about resilience. I couldn't quite hear the end of it. Did you finish your statement?
Well, no, I was just saying that the capacity to endure hardships, it's definitely, it's a benefit, which is resilience of experiencing things that are not common.
Absolutely. You know, when I work with TCKs, you know, I used to be shocked at all the things they endured, terrorist attacks and hiding from gunmen and not having enough food and not knowing if they could escape dangerous situations and bombings and things like that. But now I realize it's kind of common for TCKs to go through these things. And even my own children experience those types of things. So that's what when you're living a life overseas, that's often part of the package. Often it's a call to suffering. The benefit of that is that we get training in how to be resilient. And that's, if you live a posh, easy life, you don't often have the opportunity to develop those skills. It's like a muscle, resilience. It's something you can build and grow. And even now, if you're going through a hard time, resilience, you can do things to build your resilience. Naturally, living overseas in lots of unknown situations and you know, crazy, unpredictable scenarios, it forces you to build resilience. And of course, there are times when those hardships can cause trauma, and that's not to be neglected and should be, you know, properly dealt with. But the positive side is building that resilience. And so as you go through life, you can look back on your history and say, I got through some hard things. And I have the skills to get through this. That's the one hand. The other hand is building that dependence on the Lord. When you go through those really difficult times, you know, it is difficult just to move once, let alone hundreds of times and you all are all somewhere in between there. Moving is really hard, but you build resilience and you hopefully are building your dependence on the Lord through those hard times. So, you know, that's definitely one of the benefits. Any other thoughts on the idea of resilience?
Amanda, I would just like to read a comment here on the chat, backtracking a little bit. It's a comment from Jack. He says, I'd like to share one more challenge as it's something I've become aware of just tonight while we have been meeting together. I was raised in the Baptist tradition, spent time in charismatic churches, and was Presbyterian for a number of years. When I was 31, I felt led by Jesus to become a Roman Catholic Christian. That was half my lifetime ago. What I realized tonight is that I have only met one other Catholic TCK. Catholic families tend not to be missionaries overseas in my years, and so I feel very lonely at times with US Catholics. On the other hand, my experience has been that nearly all the TCKs I have known and met are evangelical, many from a background that taught them Catholics aren't Christians. Thus, I can feel fear and loneliness of another kind with TCKs as a Catholic TCK.
Jack, thank you for sharing that. That's really an important part of your story, and you know, and feeling that loneliness because of, you know, your faith background. Do you want to add anything else to it, Jack?
It's just something I've really, it's just something I've become aware of, and I didn't get it until while we were meeting.
Hmm.
Yeah, you know, because again, I've been interacting more with TCKs in the last year or so, and I realize I haven't met anyone who took the journey I did and became Catholic. And so I know the vocabulary and speak of both evangelicals and Catholics, and I treasure my evangelical. For me, I brought it along, but Catholics don't know how evangelicals speak. And so when I'm around TCKs, the speak of all the cultural stuff, but when it's faith speak, then I feel very much on the outside. And because I mean, I grew up in the Philippines, people who grow up Catholic and then become evangelicals think that Catholics aren't Christians. And so there's a lot of prejudice, even if it's not outright spoken, there's a lot of prejudice towards Catholics on the part of particularly more conservative evangelicals. And a lot of TCKs in my experience are conservative on the spectrum. So it kind of took guts to bring it up tonight, but I just wanted to do it because I thought, yeah, it's almost like I need to come out in the open on this one too.
And Jack, I'm so glad you did, because this is a place where we want you to feel welcomed and a part of the group. And we welcome you as a Catholic, and we welcome you and your faith and how you express it. And, you know, it's an important part of your identity. And just like I would hope that people in this group would be open to people from different cultures, then, you know, I hope that we would also express that same openness, you know, that for you and your faith journey.
Thank you.
So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that.
I think,
go ahead.
I think I can speak for all the Brazilians here, or who grew up at the Brazil MKs. And I don't know where some of you, I didn't hear where some of you were grew up, but anyhow, that's how I grew up, because Brazilian evangelicals are also feel that same way, and even a lot of the Catholics, they say, well, I'm a Catholic, I'm not a Christian.
Yeah.
So that's how I grew up thinking, but I have come to see differently here in the US. I've met some very Christian Catholics here, and I've met one or two people who have gone from a Protestant or evangelical church to a Catholic. So it's not as common, but you're not alone in that either, even though you feel alone. And I like the statement, or the mission statement, I guess, just to be heard, to connect, and to belong. So I feel that definitely glad you brought that up, and we all are connecting and being heard, and you do belong.
Thanks, Linda.
You know, you're touching on one of the other aspects that's a real benefit, is by living and experiencing life overseas and in different cultures, I think our box of what faith and religion looks like gets blown apart. In my own experiences, seeing faith look entirely different in different cultures, and that's been a real challenge and a hardship actually in our family personally. It's been very hard for us to find a church that we feel comfortable in, because our box just got blown apart, and we're like, okay, Lord, whatever you're doing, but that doesn't sit so well in some American cultures, and so even the faith part of that journey has been affected by our time overseas. And like Sam had said originally, like living overseas kind of broadens your view of God like a kaleidoscope, and seeing different aspects of his glory. And that's hard to put into a box, a tidy little American faith box. And so that can actually turn into a real challenge to figure out what that path looks like in the culture of America. So Jack, I think, you're not alone in that. And I hope that you're encouraged by, being a part of this group.
Yeah, well, and one of the benefits, I think, of being a TCK is just being open to so many things that I wouldn't have been open to if I'd been raised in a monocultural. I like to use the word single culture instead of mono. It doesn't sound quite as negative.
That's fine.
In single culture, the downside is they have a lot of upsides, but the downside is they just don't get exposed to the kaleidoscope of cultures, languages, faith experiences that we do.
Dennis, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I really appreciated Jack's comments and openness. And to be honest with you, how all of this started, I got connected with a group of underage kids on Instagram when the pandemic started. And one of the leaders of the group, the spokesperson, I guess there's two girls that do it. And the spokesperson, I was able to meet with her. She's also Catholic. And she got on with me and we talked a couple of times and she said, hey, can you be the leaders of the adult people? We don't want to do that. And I'm like, sure, I'll be glad to do that. So it was my contact with them and just learning from them. And I picked up a lot of the way they did this stuff. And we just kind of like modeled some of the aspects to it and put it to practice. And what we're doing here, we just went beyond. But even Jack mentioned something, this aha moment, we like to call it, we had tonight. We have them like every time we get together. We have always had those aha moments like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, now I understand that. And just finalizing my last thought here, just the openness, the benefits of being a TCK is the openness that we have to listen and allow other people to share and express their experiences and their journey, and just allowing people to be themselves in that sense, which is often hard for a single culture, like Jack said here. And I think that's an important trait that we have. And I think we need to care for that, and we need to allow that, because that's how we connect with more people and we can grow and become a bigger network of an expression of who God is here on earth. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Dennis. And we are really grateful for what you've done to bring people together. And I didn't know that background of how it got going. That's really cool. So we appreciate what you're doing to keep this community going, Dennis. So I do want to respect everybody's time. Do we have any questions or other discussion things that are on your minds before we wrap things up? And I can't see anything on my phone. So Spencer, you'll have to tell me if somebody puts a question in the text.
Sounds good. Or you can just unmute and ask the question if you like to. That works as well.
Yep.
So any other benefits or any other challenges you guys think of as being TCK, something that you've gone through that you find difficult, that you're wondering if somebody else has gone through the same problem, or if it's calling you, or this is like Amanda said, safe place. You can ask questions, and you have an expert here in Amanda, so she'll be able to help you.
Just a quick comment as I'm sitting here in the basement waiting for this tornado warning to pass. I just think, and in the pandemic, when I was standing there in the aisle looking for toilet paper, there was another lady in the aisle, and I'm like, man, I can't find this, or there's only this kind of gloves. And then I just commented, first world problems. She kind of looked at me and she goes, okay, kind of like, yeah, I guess you're right, but maybe she had no idea what I really meant, or the context. Obviously, she didn't know it was an MK, saying it from an MK's perspective. First world problems.
Mhm.
Amanda, I have a question.
Sure.
Because you do counseling, I know one thing about being a missionary TCK is not being able to be very honest or real, because I'm there to support my father
Mhm.
in his missionary. And so it's hard to develop an identity. And then if on top of that, I'm from a family with a lot of secrets that are really destructive. And then my father's one of the most successful missionaries on the mission field. I'm just curious if I often wonder, are there other TCKs that have had that kind of experience that I have?
I would say you are definitely not alone in that. The life of a missionary family is one where the parents are often put up on the pedestal and, praised by the churches and speaking, and the kids are often left behind and not just publicly, but like also personally. I've met quite a few parents who their ministry is so important and they're saving the world, but their own children are suffering because of it. Neglected. I mean, actually, when we first went to the mission field, there was another family that was being cited for abuse because they just forgot about their kids, really.
Wow.
Basic needs, and they left just before we arrived, for real. So like there are extremes to that, but I would say many of the kids who have grown up overseas of missionary families do often, they're great families, but often they're not getting the support that they need and the attention, because it's such important work that the parents are doing, and at all costs, to do the missions work. So there's a lot of pressure on the kids. It's similar to being a pastor's kid in some ways, because there's a lot of pressure on the kids of pastors to be perfect and to not mess up and just be quiet and all that stuff. And we all are familiar that those kids often really rebel. And we see that also with kids who have grown up overseas. It doesn't mean that, there's a lost cause, but it does mean it takes extra work to overcome those difficulties and to find healing, forgiveness in your family, meaning and purpose in what you went through, seeing the Lord at work through those challenges. But it's difficult. And and there's definitely costs on the family for living this type of lifestyle, that, ideally you work through them instead of, letting them cause difficulty after difficulty for your future. So that's where I enjoy working with teenagers a lot, because they're in the midst of it and it's really raw, and they haven't necessarily developed that lifetime of bad habits that they've, that were protective mechanisms. They just have to survive. And sometimes you lean into addictions, like you mentioned, or, other harmful but protective responses so that you can survive. Yeah, and actually, Jack, I was thinking of you. I've got some books that I could refer you to, that on things that you mentioned, because you're kind of new to this journey. So maybe we can connect afterwards, and I can let you know some of the resources that I have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention that if you wanted to mention them for recording purposes, you're more than welcome to mention the books. You said you have some books.
The books. Okay. Well, give me a second on my shelf. Okay. Here's one of them. This is
Great
called
book.
Kids. And this is this is like the main reference manual for this type of thing. And it actually has a chapter on benefits and challenges. So this is a great book if you're just starting out on this topic. Let me just grab a few others. Let's see. Oh, I got a bunch. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this, but this one is called Third Culture Kids, A Gift to Care For. And this has like easy exercises if you have children and you're trying to help them sort through the TCK experience. this is great for that. This one, Belonging Everywhere and Nowhere, we mentioned that today, by Louise Bushong. And I've met her before, so that's Insights into Counseling the Globally Mobile. So this touches on like counseling issues and things that you might be dealing with on a personal level as well. Let's see. This is a short little book that's helpful, From Foreign to Familiar, by Sarah Lanier. A call to understanding different cultures. So that can help understand where you're coming from. This one is a newer one called Misunderstood: The Impact of Growing Up Overseas in the 21st Century. So that's, and then this is an interesting one, The Art of Coming Home. This is about your transition back to the States. This one's by Craig Storty. So that's just a bit of, there's a couple of resources. There's more that's coming out every year as people are starting to study this topic of third culture identity. And it's becoming more of a real thing, that people are accepting and recognizing, and especially finding the value of, in the workplace and in our culture. Like, we need third culture people because we have a bigger understanding of how cultures work together and the benefits, and that it's not just one way, the American way. It's like, we're better if we take in different things from different cultures. So I think it's starting to be recognized more, but there's a long way to go as far as research goes. But if you're only going to look into one resource, I would definitely start with this one.
Who's the author of that one?
That one is David Pollock, Ruth
Oh,
Van
yeah.
Week.
I was thinking it might be his.
Yes.
I've never read. I've actually met him. So he was when he was living.
Mhm.
Quite an honor to meet him. But if you could maybe send us all a list of that list of the books in the chat to us, if you could get that, that'd be awesome, please.
Sure, I will do that as soon as we're done. Yep. Any other thoughts or questions? Well, I hope that we all leave tonight with a sense of hope. Growing up overseas has some real intense challenges, and it can feel like a burden at times. But more than that, I see it as a gift of being able to experience culture and your faith and people, getting to know people of other cultures. I think it's worth the hardship, generally speaking. And I hope that, as you grow in your identities and accepting how your past affects you now, that you'll see it also as, more of a gift and a blessing than a burden. But I encourage you to continue thinking about the challenges and the benefits and how you can even turn those challenges into strengths. There are hardships about growing up overseas, but most things can be turned into something that makes you more stronger and resilient. But I'm really thankful for each person who is here tonight. And if we don't have any other questions, then would someone like to close us in prayer?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
Okay, great. Thanks.
In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Father, thank you for these wonderful fellow pilgrims on the TCK journey. Thank you for a place to come and be vulnerable and share. Thank you for the challenges, and thank you for the amazing kaleidoscope of benefits in being a TCK. I ask you to be close to each one of these brothers and sisters in the ways in which they're struggling, in the ways they're challenged to cope with life as a TCK, and that they'll find ways, all of us will find ways to celebrate who you've made us because we grew up in another culture. We love you and we thank you that you're bigger than all the cultures put together in our world. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks everybody for coming.